Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Warhammer 40K video game lore dump, where we are focusing on specific aspects of the Warhammer 40K lore coming from the video games. So you probably have played a few games here and there is a lot of Warhammer 40K lore just coming at you at once, and you think, man, this is amazing. I just have absolutely no clue what it means, so let's go to the internet and find out. And then you are just getting swamped by lore videos and articles, and it is so much information that you are just basically getting overwhelmed with what you are seeing. So what I want to do with this video series, I want to take a specific video game, in this case Warhammer 40K Darktide, and then I want to take specific lore aspects which are very important for the game and talk about those specific aspects. So in this case, it wouldn't make sense when I talk about the Elder, the Orcs, the Necrons, the Tyranids and all that, because they are not in this game. You don't need that information right now. You have to know what is going on in the game you are playing so that you just have more fun experience the game, right? And so with that said, in the very first episode, we are covering the Imperium, or the Imperium of mankind, or the Empire of mankind. And you might say, okay, but that is a pretty vast topic, isn't it? And yeah, you are absolutely right. This is why we are focusing a little bit more on the organization, like who is calling the shots, what is the Empire actually doing, how does it look like, and so on and so forth, instead of going into all the different factions which are making up the Empire. Because if we would do that, that will be super confusing because there are so many, and it becomes very quickly Game of Thrones, and yeah, it doesn't really make sense for the game you are playing. So let's have a look at the Imperium of mankind, and it looks like this right now. And you might say, whoa, this is information overload. What do we see here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You see the vast empire of humanity all here. And there's basically the North and the South, or the Imperium and the Dark Imperium. And it is called that way because it was split by the Eye of the Terror. The whole galaxy was split in half through catastrophic events, which would be another lore dump video, which we might talk about at some point. But the only thing you have to know here is that the galaxy was split, and everyone living in the north side of the galaxy are, let's say, they're not so happy right now. There is still a connection to the Dark Imperium, but it's kind of dangerous to get there. And again, this is not the most safest part of the galaxy right now, whereas the southern part of the Empire is still doing okay-ish. We have Terra and Mars. This is Earth and Mars. So it's very close to our galaxy. And this is where they are basically have their regent, and where the Empire has their main planet. And of course the Emperor is sitting at the end, ruling over the Imperium. Now you might also ask, okay, this is pretty cool, but where is the planet we are fighting on in Warhammer 40K Darktide? So that would be Atoma Prime and the Hive city Tertium. Tertium? I think it's Tertium. And you might be wondering, where is that here on the map? Well, unfortunately, it isn't on the map. It really isn't. We don't know really where this is playing. They haven't told us yet. Of course, in a few weeks, in a few months, that would be different. So check out the description or the pinned comment. Then it will probably update that whole thing. Or maybe you know already that information and you can let me know in the comments. But at this point, where I basically record this video, we have no information whatsoever where that planet and where that system is. But I can already tell you it will not be very safe. Now, the next question is, of course, okay, so this Imperium is very vast. How is this Imperium actually organized? And to better understand that, we have to take a look at the next picture here, which is this one. So at the top of the list is, of course, the Emperor, which we will talk about in just a second. We will not go too deep into the lore of the Emperor because is really, really complicated, and there's a lot to it, and you don't have to know it. Not right now. Then we have the Lord Regent, which right now is the voice of the Emperor and is actually in charge of the Imperium. This is Robert Guillaume. Look, I never know how to pronounce his last name. I will probably never know. But he is in charge right now. He is one of the last living sons of the Emperor. And he is also, well, one of the founding fathers of the Adeptus Astartes, or just Space Marines. And he is right now in charge of the whole Imperium. Right. And then right underneath him is the High Lords of Terror. This is where all the important faction leaders, which we can see here, the Adeptus Ministorum, Adeptus Mechanicus, Adeptus Terror, and so on, like the highest leader are basically coming together in the High Lords of Terror. And they have normally made all the rules. Again, that changed when the Lord Regent showed up and was like, hey, I'm in control now. And so he is now like the highest power right underneath the Emperor. You might also notice that the Inquisition is showing up here, and they're not really connected to anything. This has to do with how the Inquisition operates, and we would definitely have an extra lore dump video solely focusing on the Inquisition, because it is very important to Darktide and to the lore you see in Darktide. And then you can see that it just splits up in tons of different Adeptus and army divisions, right? So what does that mean for this whole thing we have seen earlier? So the Imperium itself is not really an empire. Don't think about it like the Star Wars Empire, where really the Emperor is calling all the shots and tells every single person in the galaxy what they have to do. Think about it more like the Holy Roman Empire here on Earth in the medieval age, right? Where basically all those states were coming together under the Holy Roman Empire. And yes, there was an emperor, but they were all like self-efficient. They had their own rules, and they were helping the empire, but they were also their own little country. And the same thing is true for the Imperium. The Imperium has the same thing going for them. And as I said, the Emperor is in charge, and this is how the Emperor looked. This is one of the pictures they had of him. And yeah, that is how the Emperor looked. He is a superhuman. Like, he is also a very, very strong psyker. And he was basically the next evolution of humanity. Again, it is much more complicated, but that would take far too much time to go into this now. And you might have noticed that I said that was how the Emperor looked, because the Emperor got deadly wounded and has been sitting on the golden throne on Terra for the last 10,000 years. And that's how he looks now. Not very pretty. He's basically a corpse sitting on the throne. He's using his vast psychic abilities to kind of stir humanity and try to save them as far as he can. Again, it's much more complicated than that. And I would have to go into much, much greater lengths to make you understand what he is doing and how he is trying to stir humanity in the right direction. He cannot speak directly. He cannot do anything really directly. He has to do it through proxies and whatnot, because as you can see, he is not really alive anymore. But so the Emperor is not knocked out cold, but he is also not the most living person anymore alive to really stir this vast empire in the right direction. And that brings us to the comparison to the Holy Roman Empire, because every planet and every planet governor has its own thing going, right? They have their own customs, they have their own policies, they can be a democracy, they can be well, dictatorship. They can be a warlord if they want to. The Imperium doesn't really care for what you do with your planets. Well, as long as you are not worshipping chaos, but that's a duh, right? But as long as you are not doing that, they don't really care. There is but one thing which they definitely care for, and which is basically like the law in the Imperium, and that is the Imperial thief. The Imperial thief has to be paid by everyone, no matter what. There is no excuse. You have a famine on your planet, doesn't matter. You have a war going on your planet, doesn't matter. You have to pay the Imperial thief. What is that, you might ask? Well, it can mean a lot of things. It's a very fluent thing, because depending on what the planet has to offer, it changes drastically. It can be money, it can be influence, it can be wares, it can be weapons, it can be food, it can be able bodies for the armies and whatnot. Like, again, it's a very fluid thing, and it can change drastically depending on what the planet has to offer, but everyone has to pay. And that is the moment where the Empire is becoming skeptical when one of their planets is not paying up. Because that doesn't actually happen that often, and mostly happens when there is something wrong going on the planet. Right? Like there's a war going on, or an invasion, or something like that. And that is where then the Empire goes like, oh, this planet hasn't paid their thief twice. I wonder what happened there. We should investigate. And then they're figuring out that there's like a huge invasion force just going down on the planet, and they have to do something, right? And one of the other aspects, which is also very important in the Imperium, and which is also very important for Darktide, are the Hive cities and Hive planets. We will play on the Hive planet Atoma Prime, and to be precise, the whole Darktide, well, right now at least at the beginning, the whole Darktide lore will play around the city Tertium, and that is a Hive city. So how does it look like? Well, a Hive city looks like this. This is from the outside, so it's a pretty like pyramid obelisk kind of shape, and it is growing upwards. And if you want to know how it looks inside, this is right here, is a shot at Necromunda, which is the biggest Hive city / Hive planet in the galaxy. And TLDR, the more you're living on top of the spire, or the more you're living closer to the top of the spire, the better you are off. That means you must be royalty, or you must be like really, really important to live on the top. And the more you are living closer to the underhive or the sump, the more worthless you basically are. So think about it like a big obelisk, and those Hive cities are getting just higher and higher and higher. And that also means they have earthquakes, because part of the underhive or undercity is just crumbling away. Like, it wouldn't surprise anyone if at some point maybe those Hive cities would just collapse in themselves, because the lower part cannot really like uphold the top part anymore. But the biggest problem right now for those Hive cities is they're pretty lawless, at least the lower part. The lower part is super lawless, and just gangs are fighting against each others. The closer you're getting to the underhive or the sump, you will also find that there are like plague zombies going around, and sometimes even crazier things might be down there. There are also chaos cults left and right. And again, the lower part of a Hive city is pretty dangerous. Yeah, nobody really wants to go there, but that is exactly where you were going in Warhammer 40K Darktide. So you were going to the sump and the Hive city of Tertium, and you are trying to figure out what the hell is going on there. Because here's the thing. Normally, those things are pretty normal. As long as they are not interfering with the Imperial thief, the governor doesn't really care. It's like, hey, production is going well for whatever we are doing. I don't give a damn. But the moment they have more issues, they are realizing that something has to be done. And in this case, we know that an Inquisitor was be sent down there and that he is now investigating what the hell is actually going on. Or maybe they got contacted by the governor of the planet and was like, hey, can you take a look at this? Because there's something happening down there and they don't know what it is exactly. Right? But yeah, this is what you have to know about Hive cities. Like, they are big obelisks, and you're living at the top, you were good. You are living at the bottom, well, you were scum. That's basically how it goes. Yeah, there's a lot of murder going down there. And that's basically all you have to know about the Imperium right now. Like, as I said before, the Imperium is much, much bigger. There are so many different factions and things you have to look out for. And we would definitely cover them before Warhammer 40K Darktide is out. And maybe even afterwards, if we are still having some things. But there will be more videos coming. If you feel like, man, I would love to know more. As I said, there are tons of lore videos already on YouTube and on Spotify and other podcast players where you can just go to and listen to podcasts, right? But this one will focus on different aspects of Darktide. And the next video will be about the Inquisition, because, oh boy, we have to cover a lot about those folks. With that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then I would appreciate if you leave a like. There will definitely be some improvements and some updates over the time coming to the videos. I know it's not 100% perfect yet. It's also still trying to find my rhythm with all of this. If you have anything you want to add, definitely let me know in the comments. I will read them and try to answer them as much as I can. And if you're also new to the channel, you want to see more of those videos, I'm also doing gaming news, reaction videos, and some other guides for upcoming games. I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe to the channel. And if you really enjoy what I'm doing here, you can also support me on patreon.com/ChaosMole if you so desire. And with that said, stay safe. Hope to see you next time. And may the Emperor protect you. Till then.